Good morning. Welcome to AM Prime on the Content Capital WESN. I am Leah Ann Jones and it's Thursday, April 28th. You know, on my drive to studio this morning, I noticed the sky brightening and I couldn't help but think, despite the adverse weather conditions we've been experiencing this week, it was such a beautiful morning. And I think we have so much to be grateful for in our country. We have hot sun, we've got great beaches, we've got the warmth of our people, you know. And sometimes we take these things for granted. And it's so important that we give thanks always, because there are people around the world right now who are literally fighting for their lives. So just, you know, to take a moment and say thank you and to remember how blessed we are. We are truly blessed in this sweet, sweet TNT. Let's take you through what's coming up on the show this morning. We have pediatrician Dr. Darlene Harris, and she's going to be speaking with us about the little ones as it pertains to the reopening of schools and child health. We're also going to be speaking with the president of the Chaguanas Taxi Drivers Network, Adrian Acosta, on the rising cost of fuel and how this is affecting their transport. We'll take a look at the country's latest COVID statistics, keeping an eye on the rising numbers over the past couple of weeks. We'll bring you the results of the Newsday poll and take a look at the headlines in the Newsday newspapers. After the news coming up, we're going to be speaking with Port of Spain Mayor Joel Martinez, who is addressing the issue of flooding in the capital city. All this and more lined up for you on the program this morning. We have with us Dr. Darlene Harris. She is a pediatric doctor, and she's here with us this morning to share her thoughts on the importance of the reopening of schools. Even as we anticipate the arrival of 40,000 pediatric Pfizer COVID vaccines from Spain, and this is specifically for the 5 to 11-year-old age group, our children are back out to physical classes for the second week of the new school term. Good morning, Dr. Harris.
Good morning, Leah Ann. Good morning to all viewers, and a special good morning to the parents out there who probably packing lunch kits or right now has started their commute.
Yes.
Back out to school, you know. Special good morning to you. We survived week 1, so on to week 2, right?
Yes, definitely. Tell us, why do you think it's so important for the children to be back out in the physical classrooms?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important the kids go back out to school, you know. A lot of the international organizations such as UNESCO, World Health Organization, and the list goes on, basically document that we have seen a lot of fallout in education amongst our children. And the thing about it is that there's a lot of inequity amongst the school population right now, in that with COVID, a lot of the cases where there are some kids who didn't have access to laptops. There were 3-4 kids in a household sharing a phone or a laptop, no access to Wi-Fi. So they would have had such educational losses in the last 2 years, which we are now trying to catch up. And besides the education fallout and avoiding an educational crisis in this generation, we also have to take into consideration what the COVID had done for their mental health and the constant isolation, cut off from friends. It's really, really sad, you know, seeing some of these kids out there. And what I will tell my colleagues and friends who were a little bit skeptical about going back out to school is that other countries are doing it. Jamaica has done it. Barbados has done it, you know. And now it's time that Trinidad, you know, start on that road and get our kids back out to school, because online school was a temporary solution. It wasn't a permanent one, you know. And these kids really, really need to be back out in order to save the education of this generation.
Yeah, I agree. Online school was definitely not it.
It was a challenge.
Tell me, what are the concerns for our children's general health as a result of them being isolated at home for almost 2 years?
The thing is, these kids have been home for 2 years and life as a whole has changed in terms of these kids rolling off their beds 10 minutes before class, you know, eating snacks all times of the day, not eating properly. So one of the big things we have seen and has been documented both in the US and worldwide is that they have had a rapid increase in cases of obesity amongst our pediatric population, the young ones, the adolescents especially. where they have adopted more of a sedentary lifestyle where they're not out there, they're not active, they're not in their extracurricular activities. So therefore, obesity has increased. And with obesity comes the onset of early diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol, which is very, 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 worrying for us, the pediatricians as well. And besides their physical health being affected, we have seen significant impact on their mental health, where from as young as 3-4-year-olds feeling totally isolated, you have increased cases of anxiety, depression amongst these age groups. And, we've had a few cases of even suicidal deaths as well, So for their mental health, it's very important that they are out there, because school for some people are a sanctuary,
Yeah.
where is their safe place and home may not be. And we have taken away that for 2 years. So there's a lot of work for us pediatricians to do, I would say, and the psychologists as well, to help mitigate some of these things now that things are trying to go back to what it seems to be before.
Okay, that's something to take note of in terms of the trends affecting the health of children as a result of the pandemic. That's not something that I considered before. So in that event, what would you say can parents do to assist their children in adapting or reacclimatizing, especially as it pertains to socialization or even now these possible lifestyle illnesses?
What I would say is that now that we are aware of it, because I think for us parents, all we were doing for the past 2 years was we were all trying to survive, we were all trying to stay alive, we were all trying to navigate through this very, very, very difficult times. But now that, the clouds are clearing a bit, what we need to focus on now is the shift back to healthy living, especially for our kids. And what I would say is that, we adopt the healthy lifestyles, having an appropriate diet, making sure they have some sort of extracurricular activities. The recommendation is 30 minutes of active exercise per day. And that is not only for children, but also for the adults as well. The other thing I would want to mention is definitely talking to our kids, having a relationship with our kids, getting to know what's going on in their minds, and letting them know that their parents are a safe haven or a safe place, right, to share those ideas and to work through their fears. And one of the big things in the last 2 years, and that has come about with mental health, is practicing that of mindfulness and trying to stay grounded within the environment or within the times that they're in currently, right? So definitely those things. And then I would address the socialization, encourage them to probably gradually start to go back into the whole social life in terms of having their friends and having that avenue as well.
Okay. And now that they're back out, tell me a bit about the sensitization and the sanitization and the socialization methods of addressing these issues.
Sure. I remembered, I think it would have been February, the secondary school students went out, and I was like, okay, our time is coming, let's be prepared, right? So, I would gradually, you have to have a plan, really and truly. And what I would say is that parents, yes, we are scared. I am. Both of my daughters went back out to school last week. And as a parent, it's natural to worry, but being prepared and having a plan is always good. So what I usually tell parents and what I tell my friends and colleagues is that you have to have a 3-step plan. I call it the 3 S's.
Okay.
Have a plan in terms of sensitization. It must be an open communication line. It must be that these kids are bright. I think this generation is definitely, they get smarter and smarter with every generation that comes. And I will tell you, these 3-year-olds, they know about COVID in their own way. They know about putting out their hand for hand sanitizer when it is they go anywhere. They know about grabbing the mask, things like that, right? So for sure, I would say, talk to them, let them know you're going back out to school, what you need to do, what not to do, the do's and don'ts, and keep saying it every day. Make it part of the goodbye routine, Don't forget to wash your hands, keep your distance, love you, kisses, that kind of thing. Right. In terms of the sanitization, you must have some sort of family plan. So usually, like I would say, what is your family plan, really and truly, when you come home from school, what do you do? Do you walk through the living room with your shoes on, uniform on the couch, that kind of thing. So even to keep your home safe, because yes, it's a risk, but you need to mitigate the risk. So take off your shoes at the door, make sure change your uniform one time, wash your school bags, lunch kits once a week, sanitize, spray down the pencil cases, that kind of thing. That is definitely part of the routine for sure, you know. And in terms of socialization, that is a tricky one, because telling kids not to hug and not to socialize is a little bit difficult, because that is what they learn. They learn affection, they learn love. But you tend to try to increase other forms. You say, okay, let's do an elbow bounce instead, you know. You let them play outside rather than inside, and you let them play distance games, things like that, you know. But what I would say is definitely have an open communication line, because yes, that's the younger kids, but even the older kids, the adolescents, you know, they have to also be spoken to, and they also have to be reminded. And just make sure they have everything they need, sanitizers in their bags. Make sure that, you know, you tell them, don't share too much. Yes, you know, you may have a friend, come home and tell mommy, you know, say, might pack an extra pencil case with color pencils rather than sharing hers, things like that, you know. And basically, the other thing I would heavily suggest is that parents need to build a relationship in the schools so that they themselves can have an idea of what is happening. Because I can tell you, for me, one of the biggest things is that I had my child in my living room for 2 years, and I knew ball by ball what she was doing in class, what was necessary, what she wasn't doing, you know. And that's kind of made it a little bit of a safety net, but now that is taken away and you don't know what is happening. So building the relationship with the teachers and school and supporting them is also very important.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think that was really in-depth, and I like that breakdown of how to address or how to assist your child, right, at this time in terms of reacclimatizing. This may seem like a silly question, but I still have to ask.
No question is a silly question.
Yes, that's what we learn in school, right?
Right.
Yes, the flu-like symptoms are a sign of COVID, right? Especially in the younger ones. But we know that especially this age group, they are very susceptible to a variety of viruses and stuff. So tell me, is a runny nose or even just a cough, reason enough to keep your child at home, and should you immediately take action in doing so? There are children, I asked this question before, let me put it in a little context. I asked this question because there are children, even as young as 5-year-olds, who have respiratory issues such as asthma and sinus allergies, which are, of course, signs and symptoms of those are maybe a little runny nose or a little cough that can develop, but may not necessarily be COVID. So how do we as parents treat with that? And for the educators?
That is a tricky question, because the thing about it is, pre-COVID, you would send them to school. You would say, well, okay, have a little runny nose, a little cough, we'll monitor it, go to school today, maybe tomorrow, and then, you know, we see how it goes.
Right.
But with COVID, is a real ticklish situation, I would say, because my thing is, anything could be COVID right about now, right? Because before we used to say, you know, a lot of cases have happened where persons contracted COVID without fever. So, you know, just the runny nose and cough alone, that could be COVID. So what I would say is that for the safety of everyone involved, definitely we need to be a little bit more cautious. We need to be on it in the sense that cough and runny nose, definitely we need to say, okay, stay home for a day or two, monitor it. If it is that, you know, the child suffers from allergies, what I tell parents is that let's get that under control, because there's a lot of stuff we can do to control allergies, the allergic sinusitis, the asthmas especially, because yes, they can mimic and they can present similarly. But at the end of the day, if they are controlled, when the triggers do hit, the response will be different. So the answer to that is twofold. One, I would say definitely we need to get it under control, because if you have uncontrolled allergic rhinitis, asthma, that is a problem on its own that needs to be addressed. And if it is addressed, then you know it's not going. It's those symptoms will not present in that scenario. But rather, if it's COVID, definitely we need to be more watchful and more mindful of it. And the thing about it is that for the educators especially, they are very fearful of having hundreds of children back out. And simple things as the runny nose, the cough, that can be COVID, and that can spread rapidly through a school environment. And then schools are shutting down. So what I would say is definitely yes, keep them home, monitor. So vigilance is very important. Keep them home, monitor. Have your thermometers ready, checking that temperature, making sure a fever is not developing. Looking for the other symptoms such as the loss of smell, the loss of taste, which can or cannot occur and could be actually very rare. In cases for the children, especially, we've seen a lot of cases where they have abdominal symptoms, meaning the vomiting, the diarrhea, things suggestive that you will say, well, there's not COVID, there's gastro, and you might, still decide to send them to school, not get them tested, not keep them in quarantine. But all of these things can, in truth and in fact, definitely be COVID. So, having said all of that, what is there for the parents? What I would say is that keep them home, right? If it is that you have a little bit of cough, a little bit of runny nose, keep them home, do the anti-allergic medication if it is that they have allergies, and monitor them. If it is symptoms resolved with the medication, elimination of the trigger, and they're good within 2 or 3 days, then definitely you can send them back. It's not that you're keeping them home permanently. But if it is symptoms evolved, or if it is you find that they're not eating, they're not drinking, that they're listless, they're not playing as they usually are, that is not allergies, because allergies don't usually affect those things, right? So if those things arise, well, then definitely, the red flags start to raise in your head that this is something else. And what is good for us is that we have options now. Before, all we had was the local health centers or privately to getting tested. But you could do home testing as well, where if you don't want to, put them through all of that, buy a kit from one of the pharmacies, follow the instructions, do the swab correctly, and see what it comes back as, rather than playing the waiting game, because playing the waiting game, that only affects you, but it could affect the children. And I implore and I encourage parents, please, please, please do not send them to school, because that is how it will spread. I think it needs to be a partnership between the parents, the teachers, and everyone in education, where if it is, we have to be watchful. If it is that they develop symptoms, I will say keep them home. I have a child that has allergies where she coughs, she sneezes, but I know when I give her medication, she's fine, or she settles down during the day. If it persists and she's not playing because she's very energetic and, she's not eating because she loves to eat, it will send off a red flag for me. So know your kids, know what they have. The flip side to that is get them controlled. Having these symptoms and having these conditions uncontrolled is not good for their health. And it wouldn't be good for their education, because the teachers will.
Okay. You mentioned at-home testing for the kids, and I really want to ask, as a medical professional who deals specifically with children, what is your opinion on testing kids? Is that something that you advocate for parents to do regularly, or only if you think if you really believe that it's possible that it's COVID and you think that it's necessary?
I would say I've been in these situations, so I can tell you, talking from experience. You see, the parental instinct, never ignore it. Because for me, I would tell you that you will wonder, and that's not knowing sends me crazy as a parent. And I would say is that I think a lot of people some people may have the misconception that kids don't get COVID, or it's not common amongst children. That is not so. I've had babies, as in less than 3 months, have COVID, and they were swabbed. We swab babies like we do, and they are fine. They don't lose their loss of smell. We don't puncture anything, And yes, so I think it's a lot of fear in terms of the testing of kids, but it's not that it cannot be done, and it's not that it is totally dangerous for them, because you swab them now, they cry, they fight, but in 5 minutes they're running around and they're completely normal. Once it is that they weren't sick before you swab them, obviously. But what I would say is that the parental instinct will guide you in terms of if this is COVID or not. Other things I also tell parents, if there are any other persons in the household who exhibit symptoms, then definitely, the household needs to be screened. And they themselves as well, because I always say, if my child gets COVID, I will get COVID, because they always up under you. They don't know what quarantining is in their sense. They will be up under you. They will sneeze on you. They will cough on you. So the likelihood of you having it is very high as well. So swab yourself first if you want, but definitely if the child has symptoms that are persistent more than 48 hours, more than 72 hours, and the symptoms are evolving, meaning the cough is getting worse, the fever is not going down. Because fever with COVID, what I have seen is that it is very resistant, meaning that the Panadol may work for a few hours and then it comes right back on just before the next dose, and in some cases we've had to step up to other anti-fever medication, so the fever has a pattern as well. So what I would say is observe and then make that decision based on what is happening in the household and taking into consideration the other factors.
Okay. Well, we are running out of time, but I really just want to get your opinion. I want to ask you, at the top of the interview, we noted that, we are expected to receive some pediatric vaccines from Spain. Would you recommend that parents give their children the vaccine once it becomes available?
Yeah, they put it in hot water now, right?
Gosh, I'm sorry. In your opinion?
Because what I would say is that one of two things, I tend to be very reserved because I don't like to talk out of turn. The Ministry of Health has not officially come out with their rollout. Right. I'm anticipating it. I want to see what their plans are going to be in terms of how is this going to look, because we've had a lot of mishaps, I would say, and a lot of little things that we had to tweak with the adult rollout that I hope, having learned from that experience, they will now, correct it for the pediatric population. But the stance I've taken, because I've seen what the vaccination has done to a nation, to a country, to people, to families, is that it's a personal choice, right? But what I implore my patients and my parents to do is make the decision from an informed point of view, meaning that don't make a decision based on a rant on Facebook, where there's no science to back it up. As in, yes, there are sides to both. There are two sides to every story. Listen to two sides. Read the information. And if there's any concerns, have a conversation, have a dialogue with your pediatrician, and then make an informed decision that is best for you, your family, and of course, obviously the child. But what I would say is that there are certain conditions definitely that need to be considered if they have really, really bad asthma, if they have any sort of heart disease. A lot of the cases of kids being admitted to hospital, and even the sick cases would be the ones who are obese, All those things have to be taken into consideration when making that decision. But again, it's a decision that has to be made from an informed stance. It cannot be made out of emotion, and that is what I hope. And I really encourage parents to do. And they don't have to make the decision now. The vaccines will be there for months, hopefully. So let us try to really make that decision and make the best decision.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Harris, for your valuable input this morning. As a parent myself, I really appreciate hearing from you on this topic. We are out of time, so we're going to have to...
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
At any point in time, you guys, give us a call, send us an email. We have our Instagram or Facebook pages. Just look out for Kiddie Health.
Right.
And we definitely have had a lot of information out there. So
all right, great.
We hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thank you again.
No problems. Thanks for having me. Bye. Have a great day.
You too. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the country's latest COVID statistics and the Newsday poll. We'll be back.
I love it when a company understands me and I can get support when I need it most. Accessing an eye care professional online is priceless, and that's why I choose Ferreira Optical Virtual Care. The convenience of a virtual visit fits my lifestyle perfectly because they connect with me wherever I am. Don't believe me? Then try it for yourself. Just log on to www.ferreiraoptical.com and choose your virtual care. You'll thank me later.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
We have been apart for a long time. Now let's get together once again. Let's welcome you back.
Family!
family. North Coast Jazz 2022, May 27th to 29th. Born here, played here.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw,
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. We're going to take a look at the latest statistics coming out from the Ministry of Health, their clinical update for April, as of April 27th, 2022. The total recovered patients at 134,684. Total positive cases between March to present date, 146,140. Total active positive cases are at 7,637, and total new positive cases reported in the last 24 hours, 543, coming down just a little bit from yesterday's numbers. Total number of deaths, 3,819. We've had 2 additional deaths, and the total number of patients in hospital is 170. We go now to the Newsday poll. And the question today is, given the impact on Tuesday's adverse weather, is enough being done to tackle the cause of flooding in Port of Spain and across the country? And you responded. Didn't the present government receive a loan to install pumps and other equipment to help ease the flooding in Port of Spain? Was anything purchased? Where are they? Where is the money? Answer number 2. The people who litter and dump their rubbish all over are the right ones to ask. Then again, look how they pass the blame onto everything and everyone else. LOL. Our next response. No, nothing has been done. Drains full of silt. Major waterways like forests. And our last response. No, we as taxpayers should ask the government to invest in a weather manipulation machine such that there can be a permanent sunshine in the nation's capital. That will put an end to the disastrous flooding in Port of Spain once and for all. Oh, only if that were possible. All right, so we're moving on to our next guest this morning. With us this morning is the president of the Taxi Drivers Network, Chaguanas Taxi Drivers Network, Mr. Adrian Acosta. We have him via phone interview this morning. Are you there, Mr. Acosta?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning to the listening order.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Tell us, Mr. Acosta, the network has agreed to not raise its fares at this point, correct?
Well, I want to make it clear. First of all, is the Trinidad and Tobago Taxi Drivers Network, right?
Taxi Drivers Network. Thanks for the correction.
And first of all, we are just we like to think of ourselves as a union for taxi drivers.
Right.
Right. Basically, we don't have the we don't have the clout to tell anybody or any association don't raise the fare.
Okay.
Right. So what we have done, we have appealed to them, right, to hold back on the readjusting of any fares at this point in time, right? I think there are one or two associations that have already went ahead and just, I think they added $1 to their fare. But as I said, we don't have any authority over any association to tell them don't raise the fare. We have made an appeal to them.
Okay, and can you tell us, just for a little bit of history, when was the last time fares were increased by
most of the associations that I know adjusted their fares around the middle of the pandemic.
Right. So that would be sometime last year, maybe early last year.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Tell us, how sustainable is the fuel in price increase? Can taxi drivers continue to absorb the impact of the increase in fuel?
Well, what a lot of people don't understand, right? Most of the citizens of the country only understand when taxi drivers raise fare, right? But remember there were 3 other fuel increases besides this one, right?
Right.
We only raised our fare once within that timing. So we absorbed at least about 3 of the other fuel increases, right? We are businessmen and businesswomen. At the end of the day, if we continue to absorb all this fuel increase, we will run to the ground, run to our bus at some point in time. Because every time the government decides to take away the fuel subsidy, we lose about $40 to $45 on a daily basis. And if you check up that on a weekly basis and then checking it on a monthly basis, it's adding up to a lot of money, right? So it's only as much as taxi drivers can do at this point in time.
Okay, so is it fair to say that at some point in time we are going to have to consider fares going up?
We will try our best. We will try our best to keep it down for as long as we could. But we honestly believe, hopefully by October coming again, we're looking forward to our next dip in the subsidy again. And so, at the end of the day, there's not much that we can do as taxi driver if that time should come in.
Right, understood. All right. Tell us some of the issues facing taxi drivers on the roads daily that directly impact their earning potential.
Some of the issues facing us?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of our main issue is the illegal entity, which is PH, right? Around almost every taxi stand in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a PH stand opposite it. Right, we have made many complaints to the persons in authority concerning that, and I know we know it's a bit of a challenge, but we believe that a little more emphasis from the law enforcement could be put towards that.
Okay, and where are we with respect to the past discussions held with Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan on the new laws and the regularization of PH taxis? Has any further action been taken coming out of these discussions to date?
Well, we don't call them PH taxi, we just call them PH, right? PH is not a taxi, that is an illegal entity, right? And at the end of the day, we do not support any regularization of any PH. We are saying that there's a process in place. If you want to work taxi, right, there's a process in place for you to do in order to be a taxi driver. Nobody in this country could stop you from being a taxi driver if you want to be. We believe that the problem with persons opting to apply PH is because they don't have to pay higher insurance. They don't have to go and do no test, no driving test. They don't have to go and do no regulations, and they don't have to get their cars inspected every year. That is some of the challenges that taxi drivers face on a daily basis. If you're driving a P car, you could go in any normal garage and check your car every 3 years. You're paying your normal insurance. And one of the most important things that a lot of people don't know is that if you get an accident while driving in a PH, right, you have nothing to get once the insurance know that that individual is using his car for hire. Right? So a lot of the traveling public don't know that. Right? So we don't support no regularization of PH. We are saying if you want to be a taxi driver, there's a process in place for you to go and get your taxi badge and ply your car as a taxi.
Okay. Tell me how Kanta, I was going to ask next about why somebody would choose to remain as a PH driver as opposed to joining an association and becoming regularized. But what is the solution then? How can we make the traveling public, be made safer with respect to PH drivers?
Well, we have a 3 E's policy, right?
3, sorry?
3 E's. You know, like how they had the 3 W's
yes.
for the pandemic, right? We had the 3 E's. Educate, right? Educate, encourage, and enforce, right? You have to educate the PH men about going and getting a taxi badge, right? Encourage them to go and get it, right? And if they don't want to do either of the first 2, you have to enforce the law, right? Because using a car for which it is not registered for is a $750 fine.
Okay.
Right? So at the end of the day, if you want the citizens of this country to do the correct thing, you have to encourage them to do the correct thing. Right? Right now, a lot of people are making an excuse why they're pulling bull or walking PH. Right? I have seen men since I go in government school or go in primary school walking PH and they still walking PH up to now. It's only because of the fact that they could come out and make $300 and $400 when the day come that they are not interested in going and get a taxi badge, and they are applying their trade without anybody telling them or doing anything. So why would you want to go and get a taxi badge if I could come out and work PH and go with $200-$300 in my pocket every day?
Yeah, okay. All right, and so therefore, I mean, the PH drivers came about as a solution, or whether a safe one or not, because there are some underserved routes in the country, throughout the countries. So what is the solution for these underserved routes?
Getting a taxi badge. There's no law in Trinidad and Tobago that says if you get a taxi badge, you can't work where you're working at present. Yes, so I'm saying again, it's not that these fellas and them cannot get a taxi badge. There are things that they don't want to adhere to. As I said, taxi drivers have to pay higher insurance. We have to go and get our vehicles inspected every year in license office, right? And we have to have a proper working vehicle, and we have to just like taxi drivers. We can't come out in our short pants and our slippers and we had all our waters. So people choose to work PH because they can come out and work PH on a daily basis. But I am guaranteeing you, ma'am, that if the government decides to crack down on the illegal entity, a lot of them, those individuals who are working PH, will go and do the right thing and get their taxi badge. Some of them are complaining that they have fines against them, right? There's also something in place that if somebody have a minor charge, sometimes they get a hold of a stick of weed or they did something 5 years ago, they can write to the police commissioner, and not the police commissioner, they can write to the transport commissioner explaining exactly what is their charge against them, and he or his committee will decide whether or not they can get a taxi badge. So it's not like if you have a little charge against you that they say, no, you can't get a thing. They have an opportunity in place for them to do so, but nobody chooses to do that because I can come out and work my car and make $200-$300 in the day come, and nobody says nothing.
Okay, all right. You spoke about the 3 E's, the education as it pertains to the PH drivers, but what about the public at large? How can we incentivize the public to not use PH taxis and to stick with the regulated taxi drivers?
Well, we don't want to be drastic until tell the public don't use the PH, because the PH provider, we understand that they provide other services in certain areas where there is no HK. What we are saying to the government, right, is educate and encourage, right, and enforce the PH against the PH if they don't want to go and get a taxi badge. Because I'm saying most of them could go and get a taxi badge and get their car inspected in license office and turn the car edge, but they do not want to do that because they do not want to operate under the rules and regulations that the taxi drivers operate under. So I'm saying if the government could come out and do a campaign, right, on TV and radio and all these things, encouraging these fellas to do what is the right thing and give them at least, we have made recommendations to the government, right? Okay. Cancel all the fees and things you have to pay to get a taxi badge for about 6 months, right? Whichever person that is working PH want to get their taxi badge within that 6 month period, they can come and get it for free, right? They can get it for free. All you will have to get is your police certificate and your doctor paper. But all the payments that you have to make for it, right? Take away that for 6 months and encourage them to come and get their taxi cards and turn the car age.
That sounds like very much an incentivization. Can you tell me anything more about your proposals that you've made to the government in this respect?
Well, that is the main proposal, right? We have also said to them, you could give them other incentives, right, to come on board, right? But one of the most important thing, after the 6 months, you have to enforce the law, right?
Okay.
If you don't enforce the law after the 6 months that you have given them to come and get their taxi badge, right, you have to enforce the law to get them to come on board, right? We have also made some recommendation concerning the fuel increase that the government have made recently, you know, right? One of the fuel increase we have made is that we have asked, we have made a recommendation saying that all parliamentarians should take a 25% pay cut, right, and give up the perks, because what the government is saying at this point in time is that the country is not making enough money to maintain the subsidy for the fuel. I mean, yes, for the fuel, because that was put in place for the citizens of this country, you know. So if you are taking away the subsidy from the citizens of this country, which was benefiting the citizens, it should touch you in your pocket too, right? So if the citizens, every time the government take away the fuel subsidy, loses money, well then it means to say that the government is supposed to give up some of their perks, such as the housing allowance and the traveling allowance and all these things. It should not only affect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so very much for your time, Mr. Acosta.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me, and a blessed day to you and the listeners.
You as well. Thank you to Mr. Adrian Acosta for his input this morning. We are going to head into the regional news next. In Jamaica, an incident at a hospital caused staff to be traumatized when the family of a patient disagreed with the staff on his treatment and reported the family. The family threatened the staff until the patient was released to them. This story is brought to you by TVG.
The police are refuting claims that criminals stormed the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James demanding the release of a patient. However, there was confirmation that medical staff were left shaken following an incident involving relatives of a patient. The patient was eventually released to his relatives. Kirk Wright has the details.
Our sources revealed that the patient, a male who is in his 20s, is diabetic and was admitted to the medical ward of the Cornwall Regional Hospital from Saturday. It's understood that relatives turned up at the hospital on Sunday and Monday demanding that the patient be released because they were not convinced the doctors had made the correct diagnosis and wanted to take the patient to get alternative help. Clinical coordinator for the Western Regional Health Authority, Dr. Delroy Frey, explained that they were then advised by the medical team that it was not wise to release him based on the severity of his illness.
At that meeting, the family members seem to have accepted that. However, they returned today with other people and they demanded that the patient be released from hospital.
President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Patsy Edwards Henry, says their behavior caused the medical staff to become fearful.
One of my nurses called me in tears, explaining how frightened she was when persons barged into the accident and emergency area demanding the release of a patient.
She says she got reports that the staff received death threats.
Based on the information coming out from my nurses, the threats were that they would be killed if the police were called. And yes, the nurses do believe they weren't brandishing weapons, but the nurses do believe that they have weapons.
The police in a statement dismissed reports that the patient is a Don.
There was no confrontation between police and any gunman at that location, and there was, for that matter, no confrontation between police and the family members. The gentleman is a former taxi operator and from all indication was never part of any gang and has never been involved in any confrontation with the police.
Dr. Frey says the incident has caused panic among the medical staff and that it is already having an effect on doctors who were scheduled for the evening shift.
I think we'll have a small amount of doctors turning up because some call in that they don't feel well. So we have to look alternative way to deal with that.
He says the public should be more sensitive when dealing with medical staff.
We are trying our best to treat patients And I'm just begging people to be just courteous to the staff. You know, it's hard work, and it would be nice, you know, if we talk, you know, like very civil people and not to shout at them, etc.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
Looking at the Bahamas now, Acting Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernando highlighted concerns with the rise in armed robberies and homicides, lamenting that tourists are not exempt, putting at risk the island's primary industry. We have more details from our news.
The acting commissioner made the comments during a virtual Meet the Press event that was held to highlight the Royal Bahamas Police Force's efforts to fight crime. When asked about a recent advisory from the U.S. Embassy in Nassau, which cautioned U.S. residents about crime levels on New Providence, Fernando cited a recent incident at a golf course during which several tourists were robbed.
We are very concerned. That is our bread and butter. Tourism is our bread and butter. So everybody, every right-thinking Bahamian should be very concerned about that. And if they know who the culprit is with respect to that recent matter at the golf course, they should turn him in and turn him in now, because that is our bread and butter. If the tourists stop coming, then we finish. And we will not stand by and let a handful of individuals destroy our country.
In an alert sent out on April 20th, the U.S. Embassy in Nassau raised concern over several recent armed robberies and an increase in homicides on New Providence. The embassy advised U.S. citizens to exercise vigilance and noted that tourists have reported 4 armed robberies to the embassy. It's no secret that homicide numbers have been notably higher than those seen in recent years when it comes to armed robberies. Fernando says they're also on the rise.
But it's really all over. It's not just in one or two particular area. So it's spread. Sometimes it happens at the food store, leaving the food store, you're not paying attention as you move to the parking lots to get into your vehicle. As I said, the ATM machines, which is spread all over.
Fernando says police are working diligently to crack down on violent crime, noting that a major operation has led to nearly 200 arrests in recent weeks.
We remain committed in serving our Bahamian people, our partners, our stakeholders. We're referring to the Defense Force and our other law enforcement, by extension, our U.S. partners as well, as we continue to ensure that the Bahama land is safe.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
A major police operation launched 3 weeks ago, leading to nearly 200 arrests, thousands of searches, and the confiscation of high-powered weapons and ammunition. Acting Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernando hailing Operation Ceasefire as a significant success. Police recovering 13 firearms and 251 rounds of ammunition, as well as close to 85 pounds of marijuana from known hotspots. Fernando showcasing one of the most recent weapons taken off the street.
The driver of that vehicle threw out a high-powered weapon from that vehicle. They were able to stop that vehicle a short distance away. An adult male, he was arrested and taken back into that area where that high-powered rifle was thrown. And on checking, we discovered this weapon. And I just want to show the Bahamian people what our law enforcement officers are up against. This is a high-powered rifle with 2 drum barrels. And you can see 2 drum barrels. And each one of the barrels could hold up to 100 rounds.
As for arrests, Fernando says 183 people have been taken into custody since the start of the ongoing operation.
Let's take a look at the headlines in the Newsday newspapers. We told you so. Rich Plain residents react to the autopsy conducted on PC Clarence Gilks, who was shot dead in Rich Plain, Diego Martin last Friday. Residents are claiming that they are not surprised by the autopsy results, which were concluded on Tuesday, which stated that PC Gilks was shot from behind. This another stories on the front page of the Newsday. That's the front of the Newsday newspapers. And in the back, TT under 17 suffer third straight CONCACAF loss, Mexican mauling. The under 17 girls suffered a 10-0 beating to Mexico in their final match of the CONCACAF under 17 Women's Championship in Dominican Republic on Wednesday. And in the Tobago Newsday, mission to save reefs. There's an 18-month pilot project being undertaken by the Marine Resilience Initiative, and it's been launched to help devise a strategy to protect Tobago's world-renowned reefs. Let's look at the front page of the Newsday, Tobago. And in the back, St. Kitts to stage 7 CPL matches. Yes, we're looking forward to CPL coming up. And St. Kitts completes the list of host nations for 2022 CPL. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the news at the top of the hour.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
We need to say.
No matter how, feel happy to save at KFC with a Tabanka bucket. 7 pieces of mouth-watering chicken and 7 regular sides for only $107.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We have Port of Spain Mayor Joel Martinez on the line with us this morning. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning. How are you?
Thanks for joining us. I'm fine, thanks.
Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning again. Tell me, are there any, I mean, we've been facing some rough weather this week, and of course, you know, Port of Spain the city is prone to flooding. Can you tell us if there are any immediate plans to mitigate the issues arising out of the flooding in the city?
There have been flooding going on in the city of Port of Spain for many, many years. Yes. We have looked at many plans over the years, and when we would like to implement, the economy has not been that great to us, and it would take hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to look at the infrastructure. It's over 100 years old, right. And it requires some serious intervention ultimately. When we do get the money for it, then we probably will do something about it. In the meantime, what we have to do is maintenance, and as much as possible, we have to make sure the drains are clean. Hope that the tide is low when rainfall that is unusual, like the one that has presented itself over the last couple of days happens. And as you would realize, the rainfall was so bad and the flooding has affected. It has raised a lot of the asphalt on some of the roadways within the city of Port of Spain. So we have to continue to do maintenance, as I indicated. If you look at the drains that we have in the city, they're over 100 years old. The infrastructure it has not been designed for the capacity of rainfall that we receive. And the way in which rainfall falls these days, when you think about it, you get a lot of heavy rainfall over a very short period of time, and it usually have a disaster effect. And what we have to continue to do is encourage people to not throw waste in the in our water courses and clog it. A lot of times flooding is caused by when you look into the drains and you have to clean them. There are a lot of plastic bottles, a lot of debris, a lot of solid waste that goes into the drains. People have to be a lot more considerate when disposing of their items. And once we can do that and we develop the discipline as a society, then I think we are heading in the right direction.
Okay. You mentioned infrastructural issues that contribute to the flooding. Aside from the drainage, are there any other major infrastructural issues that you are aware of that contribute to flooding? Or what are the major infrastructural issues?
In what way?
You mentioned infrastructural issues because the infrastructure is so old. So just for clarification, I just wanted to know what were the major infrastructural issues that need to be looked at that would be at such a
our water courses. When you look at our drainage in the city, we build drains for a certain amount of rainfall, a certain amount of water running off of roofs and so on. And water that flows. But when you build up a city, and you also have to build up the drainage infrastructure, and if that is not done in the same way the city is built up, you're going to get a lot more water being directed in a particular area, or like for instance that will flow towards the rivers very, very quickly. And you also have to understand that Port of Spain is at the foothill of Maraval Hills and of St. Anne's Hills. So a lot of water comes off the hills and runs straight through the East Rye River and the Maraval River. And when the capacity of those rivers have reached its max, you're going to get overflow. And then you have general rainfall that falls in the roads that have to be taken up by slipper drains and then goes into some of the box drains, and it goes all out to the sea ultimately. And tide is high, you're going to have a backup. So you have all of that going on. What I did indicate otherwise is that if our drains are not, if the infrastructure of our drain is not to what it is, and it requires us to have bigger drains and so on, we also have to take into consideration that if you put a washing machine in the river and it goes, or you cut down a tree and you leave the stuff inside of the river, because that's what people tend to do, and throw plastic bottles. For every one resident that throw one plastic bottle, you can imagine the thousands of plastic bottles that you will have. If you go to all, when you do cleanup campaigns, like this weekend in the city, we're doing a cleanup campaign. Right. We ask people, and that's why we do it, to encourage people to get rid of their solid waste, which is their bulk waste, and dairy-like vehicles. You see a lot of that around the city. We have been trying to deal with that and take up those dairy-like vehicles. Overgrown lots, we have asked people to cut them. Well, we will take care of them this weekend, and so on. Dairy-like buildings that they leave standing because they may have had a fire or they abandoned it and things like that. So you have so many different things taking place at the same time that we want to try and deal with this weekend. It's a national cleanup campaign put on by the current Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. And we're trying to ensure that if we get all of that solid waste out of the system, and then we encourage people to not put plastic and throw things into the rivers or the water courses, it will help.
Okay. The cleanup campaign is open to the public? How do we get some more information?
A cleanup campaign is for all citizens in the city of Port of Spain and environs to put out their waste this weekend. Port of Spain is working alongside Sawa Laventille. Last week we had Diego Martin, and they would have done the cleanup exercise in the whole of the Diego Martin region. We're using almost the same assets, so everybody is helping everybody. Yeah. And then we have some contractors who work with the system regularly. We have asked them to help us. We have asked sponsors to come on board to assist in giving workers, water and food and things like that. So that doesn't deter them from doing otherwise and so on. So we want, as I said, we want to take care of overgrown lots, trees, derelict vehicles, solid waste, removal of bulk waste, as I said, and so on, so that we can better serve the area and have a nice, clean, fresh position at the end of this.
Okay, just tell us a little bit about, give us some more information if we want to get involved in the cleanup campaign this weekend. Where can we get some more information in terms of time? Where do we meet up? How do we get involved?
Good. So tomorrow morning, I think they're meeting by Riverside Plaza, and they're going to start from there. There's about 92 employees from the corporation is going to get involved, together with contractors, together with volunteers, and so on.
Right.
And you can get in touch with the Port of Spain Corporation. Right. The CEO is involved. Our councillors are involved. Okay. And we're trying to do this thing in harmony and collectively, so that we can really, at the end of Sunday night, say that we have how much solid waste that we have collected, how much dairy vehicles we have removed from the system, and really feel that we have that sense of cleanliness now.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
I just lost my train of thought. Apologies.
That's okay.
If you please, that I would like to just ask about some other issues.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Reckon service is set to return to the city. Has this begun already?
No, we haven't started the Reckon system as yet. We are collaborating with the Ministry of Works and Transport, which is the transport, not the transport, but the Traffic Management Division. We wanted to ask them to ensure that the lines, all the parking zones and the non-parking zones are identified to the public.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that we don't discriminate when we are wrecking. We want to also reach out to the police to inform them that when you're doing the exercise, there's a particular manner in which you must operate.
Okay.
And it is not a hustle. It is not for profit. It is for the benefit of removing congestion from the city. It is also creating order, stability, and so on. So you want to be able, we don't have a parking meter system as yet. People are parking all over the place indiscriminately, blocking corners, entrances, and things like that. And when that indiscipline occurs and we allow it to continue, we end up with problems thereafter. So what we are working on is to ensure that when we start the program, everything is in place and that we can monitor it properly and ensure that we offer proper service.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a plan in place for the implementation of parking meters? We embarked on a program to implement parking meters some years ago. It's currently with the Ministry of Works. I believe they're waiting on procurement legislation to be able to put it into effect. Okay.
Once that is done, then they will roll out a pilot program, and then eventually we will have parking meters throughout the city, which, as you would realize, in most developed cities, there are parking meters.
Yeah.
That's something that we are really looking forward to, and we'd like to see that happen in the city of Port of Spain so that we can collect some revenue, and so because it requires revenue to run the city, and there's a lot of development that we would like to put in place in the city, and it requires finance to be able to do so, and hopefully we will be able to get that off the ground hopefully within before the end of 2022 or within early 2023. Apart from that, the wrecking service is going to always be required because you're going to have people who block, as I say, indiscriminately park on corners and things like that and block driveways. Like, for instance, recently, we've had the fire services coming up Sackville Street, and they've had to stop you can imagine they're going to attend to a fire. There's a particular route that they have to take. And when they get to a point in the route that they are stuck because somebody parked indiscriminately and affected the fire truck from being able to pass through that, which obviously, when you look at downtime or those type of response times to things, you will realize that timing is so important when responding to emergencies. And so that we have had a number of those incidents. We have had corporate Port of Spain complaining that they have put down car parks and they have asked people to come and park in their car parks so that they will be safe and so on. And nobody's taking that on because you can park anywhere right now and no wrecker will move you, no police will move you, and you can do what you want.
Basically. Okay, you spoke about, the congestion and that kind of stuff in the city. Are there any plans at present or in the long term to adjust the traffic route for a more efficient flow in and out of the city?
Well, we are also speaking to traffic management about parking areas where you can park and you can't park.
Right.
We're also looking at flow. And we're also looking at the possibility of a hop-on, hop-off system. Now, there is a bus system that circularizes the city, that moves around the city, right? Okay. But that is done only on at certain times. We would like to implement that as an all-day event, all-day into evening, and maybe take up routes where the population, like how you have Arapita Avenue and so on, and encourage people to park and use the hop-on, hop-off ultimately. That's part of when you're looking at the revitalization of the city, and you look at the eliminating congestion or putting order, you want to be able to encourage people to jump on a hop-on, hop-off and get to their destination and to be able to leave whenever they feel like. And because the bus service will probably be passing every 15 minutes or every half an hour and things like that,
Yeah.
All of that is being discussed at this time together with the Public Transport Service Corporation and the Traffic Management Division to be able to build that into our revitalization program.
Okay. And is there any possibility of certain streets that are heavily foot trafficked, such as Charlotte Street, Frederick Street? Is there any possibility of those becoming solely pedestrian streets?
Well, we have spoken about that. I have spoken to Doma about it on a few occasions. They seem reluctant about wanting to have the street pedestrianized. I believe it is the proper way to go. It's progressive. I've traveled the world and I also know that these businessmen have also done the same and they've seen the benefit of it. It will also enhance their real estate. It will also develop the east part of Port of Spain. But it's just that sometimes, change is difficult. Change is hard to swallow. But once you start thinking about it and helping them to understand that it is progressive, it is the way to go, we can start it on a sort of a pilot project and then eventually do some form of quasi pedestrianized, whereby at a certain time it's fully pedestrianized, or because you remember there are business people that have car parks on that street. There's also the loading and offloading of goods to be able to have those businesses continue to run. They may have to zone it. They may have to do it at certain times and things like that. But that is progressive, and that's the way in which we would like to go ultimately.
Yeah, that sounds like I've seen it. I think it in one of the Caribbean countries just recently. They've converted some of their streets to pedestrian-only streets. Mr. Martinez,
when you pedestrianize a street, you encourage more traffic on the street. First of all,
yes.
Charlotte Street is right now a tourist destination. If you think about it, because it's Chinatown.
Right.
It's Trinidad has been fortunate to have a Chinatown erected within the city, and it's one of those international landmarks.
Yeah.
And we can change the whole dynamic of the street and encourage people to improve their facades, do some rehabilitation work on their buildings, because we have been talking to TNTech, which is the public utility, to remove some of the overhead wires that are so disgustingly looking on some of the poles that we have. If we can remove that, maybe we could put some of that business underground, and Charlotte Street has slipper drains, and we can maybe turn that into one box drain going all the way down to City Gate. That will also help. And then from store on one side to store on the next side is a big open space, which allows people to feel that sense of comfort and then we can encourage the vendors now to move away from that tent-like approach and to get carts that they can leave there and that they look very fashionable, as you will see or you would have noticed in other countries.
Are there any, it sounds all lovely, and I really look forward to the possibility of these things actually, coming to fruition. Are there any major issues facing the city that you are planning to tackle for the duration of your term?
Well, one of the things that I would like to do, and it's not, I wouldn't say a major issue, we have worked on a number of things together as a council, and one of the things is the beautification of Broadway, which is, if you know, the Broadway area, which is by Brian Lara Promenade, that links the Independence Square to South Key. That particular area, we have done a design to plant trees and expand the pavement by 4 feet on either side, and to encourage the taxis to park properly and create a nice little hub there. That is one of the beautification projects that we have on our table. We also plan to put ambient music on the promenade. We also have embarked on a program to beautify the promenade in sectors going down, and to tackle the area of where people can enjoy, where there are benches that you can, clean them up and create some attractiveness. We would like to implement some carnival characters into the city landscape, because, Trinidad, the traditional carnival of the Boko Jambi, the Blue Devil, the Pearl Grenade, and so on. We don't have anything that represents Trinidad Carnival, which is the City of Festivals. We have the UNESCO City of Music designation, and we want to be able to do something about it. We also would like to create what you call a Walk of Fame. As you know, we talk about our heroes, our icons who have served us, have done so much for us, and recently we have lost Blacks. And then a couple of years ago, we lost Shadow, and then Singing Sandra and all these people. And we have an abundance of talent in this country, but we do not honor them. So there are no heroes for our young people to look up to culturally, sporting-wise, and so on. We have them, but we don't display them. We don't honor them. We don't encourage that sort of thing. So if maybe we could find a way through a Walk of Fame, like how you have Hollywood Walk of Fame, we can do the same thing on our pavements. We can start with Napa. We can start with different areas of the city, and people who have contributed to the city of Port of Spain and to the growth of Trinidad and Tobago. If we can honor them and help young people to understand, and they can read about their history. You could use your phone now and a QR code, like what we did with the Memorial Park. If you go to the Memorial Park, you will see signage there about the history of the Memorial Park, the cenotaph, and so on. And it's lit up in the night. It's one of our areas in the city of Port of Spain that is normally kept in pristine condition, and we have exposed the sort of what you call it, the granite that is on the ground, and the yellow Portland stone, and the statues that are bronze, and we clean them up quite often and try to maintain a particular standard, because when you look after and you remember who fought for your country, it starts off there.
You mentioned we're running out of time, Mr. Martinez, but I really need I have to ask, you mentioned Carnival. It's the hot ticket item for Carnival 2023. Has the city started preparing for Carnival 2023?
The city is supposed to always be prepared for Carnival, right? Because Carnival happens every year, despite the 2 years that it didn't happen. And we only got a taste of Carnival, and you can tell that Trinidadians and Tobagonians are so happy for their Carnival. As you realize, Tobago is going to attempt on having a Carnival in October. I wish it tremendous success because it's something that they have spoken about for some time. But I think Trinidad Carnival in the city of Port-of-Spain is really the mecca of Carnival around the world. We have to always be prepared to host a good show and to continue to make Carnival one of our biggest earning revenues, and to encourage the world to be able to come and experience Trinidad Carnival and feel that sense of enjoyment.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for the interview this morning. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Martinez.
You're most welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
All righty. All right, so this is where we wrap things up this morning. Thanks for staying with us here on AM Prime on the Content Capital WESN. Thank you as well to all our guests, Ms. Dr. Harris, Mr. Joel Martinez, of course, and also to the Taxi Drivers Network President, Adrian Acosta. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us here at AM Prime, email amprime@wesncc.com or check us out on all our socials at WESNCC. Talking Point is up in a few, so be sure to stay tuned for that. I'm Leah Ann Jones here with you for the week on AM Prime. Remember, there's always something to be grateful for. So keep that top of mind. Try to remember to be grateful as you continue with the rest of your day. See you tomorrow.